Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. This is a weekly podcast about the future of data-driven marketing. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, the creative effectiveness ad tech platform. And every week or so, I get the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders. And this week is certainly no different. So I'm on a call finally, after months of waiting, with Jack Chape, who is EMEA Head of Integrated Media at PMG. So Jack, for anyone who doesn't know who you are or what you do, could you give us a bit?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me. So yeah, a bit of background about me. Rewinding a little bit, over a decade ago, I started my career in agency land working at an agency called iCrossing. Started as a paid search analyst, spent a few years there working on some big global brands. Then moved across to an agency called Rocket Mill, where I spent 7 years helping to grow and build that media team from 5-6 people to when I started to 70 people now. And I went from kind of a role of being a manager all the way up to chief media officer. And then in December of 2023, Rocket Mill was acquired by PMG. So super exciting time. We are now fully integrated as one PMG globally. And for those that don't know, PMG is an independent global marketing and technology company. We are home to over 1,000 people globally and some world-leading brands. And we're fully integrated, operating across the full spectrum, everything from technology measurement through to strategy, creative, full funnel media, SEO, and everything in between.
Wow, Jack, what a story, what a career. That feels like a lot in 10 years. But anyway, what it does mean is I've got a very high expectation of everything that's going to come next on this podcast. But in that impressive career, what would you say has been the best investment of your own time, energy, or money in your career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, if I think about what's been the best investment of my time and energy over the course of my career to date, and it might sound simple to you and your listeners, but it's just been maintaining that learner's mindset. Gone from working at an agency through some very distinct growth phases, different sizes of clients, challenges and opportunities within that. Having that learner's mindset's been really, really important for me. And this isn't just learning in a formal sense, training, of course, but intentionally carving out time outside and around of the day-to-day just to learn and to stay curious and to consume things that make me, I think, a better practitioner and leader. And why I think that's so important, like working in the industry that we're in media and marketing, everything is changing all the time, all around us. And there's this constant balance of it being an art and a science, right? So things can be subjective. The platforms are evolving every quarter. Technology is moving at light speed. And now with AI, there is a rate of change unlike anything we've ever seen. So I think for me, that learning is not just a nice to do, it's crucial. And you can't afford to not be learning in this industry. Yes, the best learning I'd say is on the job. You often need to supplement that. And I think in terms of how I've done this, it's not those big moments. It's those small moments, those small pockets of time, across your day where you can take in something new, reflect or get inspired. So for example, my commute, if I'm coming into our Brighton office, is about 30 minutes. Like I might use my commute, it's longer if I'm going into London or even a run, or when I'm doing dishes, to listen to a podcast, maybe like this one, listen to something interesting or thought-provoking. And sometimes it might be reading a few articles or kind of just dipping in and out of a book or scanning what is now quite a curated LinkedIn feed that's full of people that are doing, smart and forward-thinking work. So it's not about being always on all the time. You need time to kind of unplug, but it's just about, staying intentionally curious. And I think the beauty of this is that there's no barrier to entry. Like learning is so accessible now, podcasts, newsletters, etc. It's just come down to making that choice of how to use that time and something that's going to help to build you up.
So what's your best bit of advice to become a better data-driven marketer? You've learned a lot on the job, as you say, but you've also done a lot of dishwashing to podcasts and that kind of thing. But what is that bit of silver bullet advice that you find yourself saying most often?
So you'll spot there's a bit of a theme here, but I think my advice to anyone who wants to become a better data-driven marketer is simple, and that is just to stay curious. And I guess I'd think about this in three different ways. One is around asking better questions. The second is around like, what does curiosity enable? And this is what can happen. And the third is like looking at it as a competitive advantage. Curiosity may not sound, particularly technical or data oriented, but in my experience, curiosity underpins all good strategy, all good media, all good analysis, and ultimately all good marketing. And the beauty of it is it's behavioral. It's something that's really easy to model and to practice. And it's incredibly low stakes just to be curious. So anyone can do it, but not everyone does it necessarily consistently or applies it in the best way. It's not about, I guess, just chasing down kind of meaningless targets or metrics in that sense. It's about interrogating the data, asking questions, why, what if, how about, and that's where I'd say the real insights live. And I think that we're at this kind of inflection point in the industry where, there's more data, more automation, more AI than we can shake a stick at. And it's tempting to think that if you just have better tools, you'll get better outcomes. But that's not really how, progress happens. It's about, discovery, not repetition. And I think that's what, drives real breakthroughs. I think if bringing this into some real world examples, starting out, as I mentioned, as a paid search analyst, huge amounts of data that we could work with. My early managers back then would ask why when I was presenting analysis or report commentary back to them, they'd say, well, why this, and have you thought about that, and just trying to get deeper and interrogate it, but coming from a place of wanting to understand. And that was really valuable for me because that sharpened my thinking each time. And it meant that quite quickly, I was then doing far more interrogation of the data before I then presented that analysis back to, my boss or my clients. And it meant I had a clearer story and I was more confident in that story. And I've tried to instill this in teams here and in other places. And at first, it might feel like someone's trying to catch you out when they're presenting something and you're asking why this, why that, and have you thought about this? But that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually, I think a development tool to help someone, sharpen their analysis, their storytelling, and their point of view.
So we're going to move on now to your shiny new object, which is test and learn, which, by your own admission, isn't the newest thing. So what makes it a shiny new object for you? Why have you chosen?
Yeah, so it's you're right. It's definitely not a new thing, but it's something I think is pretty simple, potentially underutilized, and I think the potential upside is huge. So, a culture of experimentation brought to life through testing plans. And I think when people hear testing plans, they might think of it being this small tactical thing, something you do when you've got time or leftover budget. But I'd see it as a mindset, a way of turning that curiosity into some structure and ideas into real measurable impact. If you're not testing, you're going to go backwards because the truth is your competitors are experimenting. The best advertisers are experimenting all the time. And if you're not, they're going to be learning faster than you are. And that learning, compounds over time. A proper testing plan is more than just a list of ideas. It's a structured and should be, have a scientific approach to it, to innovation. It's obviously going to be tied to your media plan and to an overarching measurement framework. And, some agencies, advertisers will allocate a percentage of budget to innovation, which I think is brilliant and is something we would advocate. Tough times at the moment, but, by doing that and having this kind of this structure to it, you then start to build out your rows of tactical tests, each one linked to a bigger strategic objective. And I think it's a way of looking at this is it's how you can hedge risk, how you can validate hypotheses before scaling, and then replace just gut feel with confidence. And I think the beauty of media is there's so many things you can test. You can test different audiences, like who are you reaching and how effectively are you reaching them? What's the quality of the audience signal and the recency of this? From a creative point of view, you'll know all about this, like, different creative formats that we can test. In social, should we test a creator ad versus kind of a more polished ad? How you can use ad sequencing in interesting ways. What placements drive the best responses? Where can we find better value? Incrementality testing is a big one as well. So to what extent, would this result have happened were it not for, this media or this campaign? So those are just a couple. And then, of course, out of the digital platforms, the social platforms, and so on, there's a constant stream of new alphas and betas that you can test as well. And that's where you can drive real competitive advantage, because by their very nature, you're getting early access to something as well. I think a recent example that I've seen from our team was within YouTube, and they had a hypothesis of, rather than saying to YouTube, I have an audience I want to target, and just target this across the run of network or whatever kind of channels YouTube deems relevant, it was taking an approach maybe more akin to TV planning, which is what the specific channels which we think over-index most highly for our audience, and specifically targeting them. They were able to run that as a split test, and the one they had the hypothesis about in terms of going channel first actually drove far higher brand lift metrics and search lift metrics as well. So that's just kind of one example that came from someone in the team having an idea and then putting that into practice.
So, thanks for pointing out that we know a fair bit ourselves at Automated Creative about creative testing, and I think if advertising was invented tomorrow, that what we do is test everything all the time. It's completely logical, right? You have a bunch of different variables, levers you can pull. So therefore, create a scientific test for pulling all those levers and see which one brings down the most apples, right? It's so obvious to me and to you, although we're coming at it from slightly different sides of the fence. But why is this not commonplace? Because we know we're right. We've been doing this for 8 years. We're working with we got with some shared clients with you guys, absolutely. And we know that if you test lots of different creative visuals and messages, then you will get a better media outcome. Your dollar, your pound, your euro will go much further. But yet it's a struggle sometimes to get people to go for that. So why is that? Why, when it's so logical, test different levers, get different outcomes, optimize towards the best outcome? Why is it so hard to sell in sometimes?
I think the cop-out answer is things get in the way. And I think new briefs, moving at pace, other distractions, things that need to be done kind of yesterday, like maybe get in the way of this. So I think, the best client engagements we have are ones where we start at the beginning and we say, look, like as part of this, we need to have a collective culture of experimentation, and it's built into what we do, and it's how we're going to drive results. Because I think otherwise sometimes, these things can sometimes fall at the wayside, or they kind of get looked at once a quarter, where it needs to be ingrained, into everything we're doing kind of each week. And that's what our team are brilliant at doing here. And I guess the other thing I'd say as well is that this is not about optimizing and testing everything to the nth degree at the detriment of growth. But sometimes and often you need to do these kind of small tests that might lead to bigger breakthrough ideas. So that is something I would say is to kind of why we should be doing this and certainly doing more of it.
So what have you seen coming down the pipe where you're like, oh, I'd love to test that? What's going to come into your test and learn strategy? What are the new things where you're like, right, that is great. I can't wait to take that to my client.
I mean, just today, there's been some brilliant new research published by the IPA into the effectiveness of creators and like actually looking at the long-term ROI payback of creators relative to things like, TV and search and so on. So I think more testing and experimentation with creators. It starts with having better briefing, leveraging them in the right way, and kind of having them kind of working with them over a longer period. But that is, I think, an area that is, going to require a lot of focus. And the social platforms, there's far more different kind of routes to market for leveraging them as well to make it easier for advertisers.
So jumping back to the creators, but it for many years, it's felt a lot like creators are a binary thing. You're either doing them or you're not, right? So, okay, right, we're doing creators. Yeah, creators work really well. Cool. We're just lumping everyone into creators. I know it's more nuanced than that. But certainly from a creative effectiveness standpoint, I think there's certainly been a lack or a lack of speed towards really giving great creator analytics. So Jack, you're the creator for whatever brand it is. Like, yes, we can see a click-through rate for Jack, or we can see a cost per lead or cost per add to basket or whatever. But really, there seems to be like a lack of analytics around the creative elements within those creator ads. And I know that it's a movement in that direction. Is that a trend that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's an industry thing that everyone is looking at and focused on. So it's not that some are doing it brilliantly ahead of anyone else, but it's definitely an industry challenge, I guess. But then there's an opportunity within that. I think increasingly now we're seeing this kind of this Venn diagram between creators and affiliate marketing. So a lot of creators have got affiliate links through to certain products, for example, and that's a really tangible way to track the impact that they're having. And then the creators are paid a commission that the brand deems kind of, relevant to the sale that they're driving. But yeah, the key thing is then doing some incrementality testing alongside that to make sure that the commission that the creator is getting is right, basically. Like, how incremental is it? And then, the more that is done through, the more that you spend, you can obviously do things like brand lift studies within the platforms as well, which can be helpful to see, okay, through running these partnership ads for a creator, like what did that do to our, top of mind awareness or recall consideration, that type of thing.
So, Jack, for anyone who wants to get in touch with you and learn more about testing and learning or being curious, where's a good place to do that, and what makes a great outreach message to you?
Oh, so I think LinkedIn is a good place to start. And I think, look, in the nicest possible way, I think do your research, I guess, into PMG and what we do, and maybe what I would find interesting. From a media owner point of view, things like case studies and creds really help as well. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place.
This one, Jack. Thanks so much for your time.